Welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. It's funny, when we try to break a bad habit, we almost always approach it like we're driving a car down this um, really steep, completely iced over hill.
Right, which is just a terrifying visual.
It really is. You're picking up speed, the cliff edge is just rushing up at you,
No.
and your only strategy, your one plan, is to just slam on the brakes as hard as humanly possible.
Just white-knuckling the steering wheel.
Exactly. You're completely relying on the brake pads of your own internal willpower to, save you from going right over the edge.
And the thing is, when the car eventually slides entirely out of control, which, let's be honest, it almost always does when you're fighting gravity on a sheet of ice,
Yeah.
we just sit there at the bottom blaming the brakes.
Yeah, we beat ourselves up.
We really do. We tell ourselves, well, I just need stronger brakes next time. We convince ourselves that the failure was a lack of discipline or like some moral failing, and that if we just try harder tomorrow, somehow the physics of the icy hill will just magically change.
But what if the problem was never the brakes? What if the problem is that you chose to drive down that icy hill in the first place?
That is the perfect question to ask.
So today, we are pulling apart James Clear's highly acclaimed book on human behavior, Atomic Habits, and we are zeroing in on a very specific, incredibly powerful concept from chapter 14.
Yeah, this chapter is a game changer.
It really is. The mission today is to figure out exactly how to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. We're moving away from this exhausting reliance on willpower, and instead we're looking at how to fundamentally redesign the road you're driving on.
And before we can successfully automate our lives like that, we have to deeply understand why that old strategy of just trying harder is, well, it's basically guaranteed to fail.
Right.
It comes down to this fundamental evolutionary law of human behavior. Understanding it is really the first step to dismantling those bad habits that are, holding you back.
Okay, let's unpack this. Early on in the book, there's this concept called the third law of behavior change. And it's beautifully simple. Make it easy.
Right, just remove the barriers.
Exactly. If you want to build a good habit, you reduce the friction. Like you put your running shoes right by the front door, so you literally trip over them in the morning.
Which works incredibly well.
It does. But the strategies we are looking at today, they flip this entirely on its head. To break a bad habit, you have to apply... difficult. We think we need stronger brakes on our car to stop a bad habit, but this approach is actually just about building giant speed bumps on the road leading up to it.
What's fascinating here is that this inversion is entirely based on the law of least effort.
Which sounds like an excuse to be lazy, but it's not.
No, not at all. This isn't just some catchy self-help phrase. It is a hardwired evolutionary truth. Human behavior naturally and inevitably gravitates toward the option that requires the least amount of work.
Because our brains are lazy.
Well, effectively, yes. But it's survival. Our brains evolved in an environment of extreme scarcity. So we are quite literally wired to conserve energy at all costs.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so if a bad habit is easy to do, your brain will choose it on autopilot because it just burns fewer calories than resisting it. Therefore, the key to stopping a bad habit isn't summoning some Herculean level of willpower. It's simply increasing the physical and mental friction associated with doing the bad thing.
Let's reframe that car analogy, because willpower is really more like a smartphone battery.
No, I like that.
Yeah, think about it. If you leave all your apps running in the background, all your notifications turned on, and your screen on maximum brightness, which is basically the equivalent of leaving all your temptations easily accessible, your battery's going to drain to zero by, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
You're just burning through it constantly.
Right. So a commitment device, which is the tool we're about to explore, isn't about giving your phone a bigger battery. It's about putting the phone in airplane mode.
Exactly. You're cutting off the signal entirely.
You add so much friction to the bad habit that the brain simply defaults to doing nothing. It doesn't have to work at all.
That is a highly accurate way to look at the cognitive load of temptation. Since human nature always seeks that path of least resistance, the million-dollar question becomes, how do we practically force ourselves into airplane mode?
How do we build that environment?
Right. How do we force ourselves to take the harder path when there's this perfectly smooth, easy lane sitting right next to it?
Well, this brings us to the psychological mechanism of the commitment device. It's essentially the act of handcuffing your future self.
Handcuffing your future self. It's such a great
It's
phrase.
basically a way to bridge the gap between our good intentions and our actual actions.
Hmm.
And there is this incredible historical narrative in the book that perfectly illustrates the extreme end of this concept. It takes us back to the summer of 1830 in Paris.
Oh, the Victor Hugo story. This is a masterclass in environmental design, and honestly, it was born out of sheer, absolute desperation.
Pure desperation. So Victor Hugo, who is already a legendary author at this point, is facing a seemingly impossible deadline for The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He had promised his publisher this massive new book a full year prior, but he spent that entire year entertaining guests, going to dinners, doing side projects, basically doing everything under the sun except writing the novel.
He was chronically procrastinating.
Totally. So the publisher finally loses patience and gives him this hard, unforgiving deadline. Less than 6 months to finish the entire manuscript, February 1831.
And for a literary work of that magnitude, a 6-month window is just terrifying.
Oh, impossible.
But what is truly interesting here is the psychology of why Hugo kept delaying the work. It's a perfect example of what behavioral economists call present bias, or hyperbolic discounting.
Hyperbolic discounting. What does that mean in normal terms?
Basically, the human brain severely discounts future risks in favor of immediate rewards. So, a missed publishing deadline 6 months in the future. That feels completely abstract and unreal to the mammalian brain.
But the immediate dopamine rush of a Parisian dinner party tonight.
Exactly. That is concrete. That is visceral. Hugo's brain was always going to choose the dinner party because it offered an immediate reward with zero immediate friction.
So Hugo clearly realized that his own willpower was completely useless against that present bias. He knew that if he had the physical option to go out and party, he would take it every single time.
Every time.
So he concocts this wild, seemingly borderline insane plan. He has his assistant collect all of his clothes.
All of them.
Every single shirt, pant, and coat he owns. And he has the assistant lock them away in a large wooden chest.
Just locked away.
Yes. He is left in his quarters with absolutely nothing to wear except a large, heavy, knitted shawl.
Which is just brilliant because lacking any suitable clothing to go outdoors and be seen in 19th century Parisian high society, well, the immediate reward of the dinner party was suddenly stripped away.
You can't exactly go to a high society dinner in a giant shawl.
No, you can't. He added an insurmountable wall of friction between himself and his procrastination. He was physically forced to remain in his study.
He locked himself in. And he spent the entire fall and winter of 1830 writing furiously in this giant shawl. And the result of that massive environmental friction was that The Hunchback of Notre Dame was actually published 2 weeks early.
Wow.
January 14th, 1831.
The mechanics of that story expose exactly what a commitment device is designed to do. A commitment device is a choice you make in the present that irrevocably controls your actions in the future.
You're locking it in.
Exactly. It allows you to take advantage of your good intentions, those fleeting moments of high motivation we all get, to build a concrete wall that protects you before you inevitably fall victim to temptation later. You lock in the behavior while you still have the cognitive battery power to do so.
And we see highly effective modern examples of this strategy constantly. I mean, most of us aren't locking our pants in a wooden chest to finish a spreadsheet for work.
Hopefully not.
Right. But consider the example from the book of Nir Allo, another prominent behavioral expert. He realized he had this terrible habit of mindlessly browsing the internet late at night when he really should have been sleeping.
A very relatable problem.
Highly relatable.
Yeah.
But to combat this, he didn't try to meditate or build nighttime discipline. He simply went to a hardware store and bought a cheap outlet timer. He plugged his internet router into the timer and programmed it to automatically sever the power at 10 p.m. every single night.
The internet just dies.
Boom, gone.
And that's the genius of it.
Right.
No willpower is required at 10 p.m. because the decision was already made at 3 p.m. when the timer was plugged in.
Right.
Everyone in the house receives an undeniable environmental cue that it is time to go to sleep.
We also see this heavily in professional sports, like athletes who have to hit a highly specific weight class will deliberately leave their wallets and credit cards at home during the critical week before a weigh-in.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. Even if they're walking down the street and they smell a fast food restaurant and they get this overwhelming physiological craving for a burger, they literally lack the mechanism to purchase it.
They've handcuffed their future selves.
Exactly. Or even the classic dining out strategy, asking a waiter to box up half your meal in the kitchen before the plate is even brought to your table.
I love that one. That restaurant strategy brilliantly removes the internal negotiation we all conduct when a massive, full plate is staring back at us.
Oh, the I'll just take one more bite lie.
Right. You eliminate the just one more bite phenomenon because the extra bites are already packaged inside a cardboard box, inside a plastic bag. The friction to access them is suddenly too high.
Okay, but I have to push back on this underlying philosophy just a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
If we look closely at this, aren't you ultimately just tricking yourself? Let's take the router timer example.
Okay.
If you go out and buy an outlet timer, you are the one who sets it up. You know exactly how the mechanism works. When 10 p.m. rolls around and the internet shuts off, if that craving to scroll social media is strong enough, you know exactly how to get out of bed, walk over to the router, unplug the timer, and just plug the router directly back into the wall socket.
That's true, you do.
You possess the knowledge to easily bypass the system you built. So does a commitment device actually hold up under the pressure of a real craving.
You're identifying the exact vulnerability of the system, but it actually highlights a very common misunderstanding about how commitment devices function in the brain.
How so?
Well, the primary goal isn't necessarily to make the bad habit a literal physical impossibility. I mean, that's the gold standard if you could achieve it, like the athlete leaving the wallet miles away at home. But the everyday goal is simply to alter the economic equation of the task.
So it's not about making it impossible. It's about making the cost of the bad habit higher than the cost of the good habit.
Precisely. You want to redesign the immediate environment so that it requires significantly more work to engage in the bad habit than it does to just stick with the good habit.
Okay, that makes sense.
With the router scenario, you are absolutely right. You could get out from under the warm covers, walk down the cold hallway in the dark, fumble with the cords behind the desk, and then sit there waiting 3 minutes for the router to reboot.
Ugh, just describing it sounds exhausting.
Exactly. Remember the law of least effort. In that specific moment at 10 p.m., when your willpower battery is already drained to zero, the path of least resistance is suddenly just closing your eyes and going to sleep.
Because you've added steps.
You have intentionally added 4 or 5 distinct steps of physical friction to the bad habit. Neurologically, often just a few seconds of extra effort is enough to break the spell of a craving. You aren't tricking yourself. You are structurally favoring your better angels by making the wrong choice utterly exhausting.
That reframes it perfectly. It isn't a brick wall, it's a very steep speed bump.
Yes, a speed bump.
You could still drive your car over a speed bump if you really want to, but it's annoying enough and jarring enough that you'd rather just turn down a different street.
Exactly.
Now, commitment devices are fantastic for managing those daily struggles, the moment-to-moment cravings that pop up. But it's one thing to apply friction to stop yourself from scrolling the internet. What happens when you try to apply this friction to a broader system?
Like an entire organization or routine.
Right. How do you force a system of good behavior on an environment that is actively trying to bypass it?
Well, that transitions us from managing daily friction to implementing what we might call ultimate friction, automating success through one-time actions.
And to really grasp this, we have to look at another incredible piece of historical problem solving. Enter John Henry Patterson in the mid-1800s.
Another great story.
It really is.
Yeah.
So Patterson was running a small supply store for coal miners in Dayton, Ohio. And he was facing a catastrophic business problem. He was bleeding money due to rampant unchecked employee theft.
Which was incredibly common back then.
Right, because in those days, retail receipts were simply kept in an open wooden drawer. Anyone could just reach in, pocket a few coins, and subtly alter the handwritten ledger to cover their tracks.
And short of hovering over the shoulders of his employees for every single minute of a grueling 14-hour workday, which is physically and managerially impossible, he had absolutely no reliable way to stop the bleeding.
He was trying to solve a systemic environmental problem by relying entirely on the individual morality, willpower, and honesty of his employees.
A terrible strategy.
Completely failing. Human nature being what it is, that strategy was doomed. But then he stumbles across an advertisement for a brand new mechanical invention. It was called Ritty's Incorruptible Cashier.
Such a great name.
It really was. And it was the world's very first cash register. He bought 2 of these machines for $50 each.
And we should point out, $50 was a massive capital risk for a struggling business in the mid-1800s.
Oh, a huge risk. But a risk he was willing to take because the mechanical design of this new machine basically guaranteed a return on the investment.
How did it work?
Here is how the mechanism functioned. It automatically locked the cash and the paper receipts securely inside a steel vault after every single transaction.
Brilliant.
Yeah, the employee physically could not access the drawer without pressing the keys to trigger the mechanism. And doing that simultaneously rang a loud bell and recorded the exact transaction amount on a permanent roll of paper.
The famous cha-ching cell.
Exactly. Within 6 months of installing those machines, Patterson's business went from the verge of bankruptcy to generating a massive profit, the equivalent of well over $100,000 in today's money.
Unbelievable.
The turnaround was so staggering that he eventually just bought the patent rights to the invention and founded the National Cash Register Company.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of behavior change, the sheer genius of Patterson's move is profound. He immediately stopped trying to change the internal morals of his workforce.
Right, no more pleading.
Exactly. He stopped giving lectures on honesty and stopped begging them to do the right thing. Instead, he altered the physical environment to make stealing mechanically impossible. He removed the human element of temptation entirely.
He automated ethical behavior.
He automated it.
Here's where it gets really interesting for anyone trying to build better habits today. Patterson's cash register stands as the perfect historical proof that a single one-time action can deliver returns infinitely. He made one singular decision. He spent the money one time, and it permanently locked in a highly profitable outcome. He never had to exert mental or physical effort on that specific problem ever again.
And that represents the absolute holy grail of habit formation. You are moving away from a fragile reliance on daily motivation and willpower and moving toward the implementation of structural inevitability.
Structural inevitability. I love that.
You're building an environment where success is just the default state.
Of course, most of us aren't living in the 1800s, and I'm guessing you aren't currently losing sleep over coal miners stealing out of your open cash drawer.
Probably not.
So how do we translate the philosophy of Patterson's cash register into actionable, everyday steps for modern life?
Yeah.
How do we build our own personal arsenal of inevitability?
The beauty of this concept is that it spans across every single domain of life. We're talking about highly specific, one-time actions that alter your environment permanently.
Just do it once.
Right. If you dedicate just one Saturday morning to setting these systems up, you will quietly reap the behavioral dividends for years to come without ever having to think about them.
Let's break down some of the most impactful examples from the book, starting with nutrition, which is where people really struggle the most with willpower.
Definitely.
If you want to drink more water, you make a one-time purchase of a high-quality water filter and place it directly in the center of your kitchen counter. You've created a permanent visual cue and reduced the friction of access to zero.
Right. It's just sitting there waiting for you.
And if your goal is to reduce caloric intake, you don't need to meticulously count calories. You simply replace your massive dinner plates with smaller plates.
The smaller plate strategy is a perfect example of leveraging psychology instead of willpower. It utilizes a perceptual trick known as the Delboeuf illusion.
How does that work?
Well, the human brain doesn't judge portion size based on absolute volume. It judges portion size relative to the amount of empty space left on the plate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so a normal scoop of rice on a massive 12-inch dinner plate, it looks pathetic and tiny, and that triggers feelings of scarcity in the brain.
So you naturally add more.
You will automatically serve yourself more to fill the void. But if you put that exact same scoop of rice on a smaller 8-inch plate, it looks incredibly full. Your brain's visual processing center tells your stomach that you are eating a massive feast, allowing you to feel satiated much faster, entirely by accident.
It's brilliant because you aren't fighting the craving, you're just tricking the brain's visual geometry.
Exactly.
Now, what about sleep hygiene? Everyone wants deeper, more restorative sleep.
Sure.
The one-time actions here are incredibly powerful. Invest the money in a high-quality mattress. Install heavy blackout curtains to remove the environmental variable of streetlights. And the most critical one-time action of all, physically unplug the television and remove it from the bedroom entirely.
Oh, that's a tough one for people.
It is. But you endure the annoyance of moving it exactly once, and you permanently eliminate the temptation of late-night binge-watching in bed.
And by removing the screen, you're also retraining the brain's environmental associations.
What do you mean?
Well, the bed goes back to being a specific environmental cue solely for sleep, rather than a cue for entertainment and, blue light stimulation.
That makes total sense. Let's pivot to productivity. The friction here is usually digital.
Oh, always digital.
Right. Take 30 minutes to mercilessly unsubscribe from every single marketing email that clutters your inbox and triggers impulsive shopping. Go into your phone settings and permanently turn off all non-essential push notifications.
Mute the endless group chats.
Yes, mute the group chats. And if you're truly serious about regaining your attention span, delete the social media applications from your phone entirely. You can still log in on a desktop computer if you really need to, but removing the app from the device in your pocket adds a massive wall of friction between you and mindless scrolling.
It's that airplane mode concept again.
Exactly. And finally, we have to look at personal finance, which might actually be the domain where these one-time actions are the absolute most crucial for long-term survival.
I would absolutely agree with that.
You must enroll in an automatic savings plan where a predetermined percentage of your paycheck is automatically routed directly to an investment account before the money ever hits your checking account. You set up automatic bill pay for every recurring expense.
You essentially set up a robotic financial manager and then completely forget it exists.
Yes.
Putting technology to work for you in this way is genuinely the most reliable method to guarantee a behavior occurs. And this becomes critically important for behaviors that happen too infrequently to ever become an actual ingrained daily habit.
Let's clarify that. What exactly makes an infrequent task so vulnerable to failure?
Well, it comes down to a concept called habit momentum.
Okay.
True habits like brushing your teeth or making coffee rely on a neurological cue routine reward loop that is triggered every single day. Because the cue happens daily, the momentum builds, and the behavior becomes automated by the basal ganglia in your brain.
It just becomes second nature.
Right. But think about complex financial tasks, like rebalancing a retirement portfolio or saving for a tax payment that's due in 6 months. You do not perform those actions daily.
No, maybe quarterly or annually.
Exactly. And because they lack a daily cue, habit momentum never has the opportunity to build. You cannot rely on a behavioral loop. You will forget. You will procrastinate. Therefore, infrequent tasks benefit immensely from technology, essentially remembering to execute them for you.
While technology is the ultimate commitment device, the underlying principles of human behavior offer a very stark warning here as well, don't they?
Absolutely. Technology is a sharp, double-edged sword. Just as you can use digital automation to make your good habits inevitable, billion-dollar corporations are actively using that exact same automation to make your bad habits completely effortless.
The ultimate example of this has to be Netflix autoplay.
Oh, it is the perfect illustration of the law of least effort being weaponized against you. Truly. Binge-watching television has become a cultural epidemic over the last decade, not because humanity suddenly suffered a collective collapse of willpower. No, it's because the digital environment was deliberately redesigned by streaming platforms to remove every single ounce of friction.
Right, because I remember in the era of DVDs, the physical friction of getting up, taking the disc out, and putting a new one in naturally broke the trance.
Exactly. It was a built-in speed bump. Now, the complete removal of the countdown timer means that total inaction, literally doing nothing but lying on the couch, results in the immediate consumption of the next episode.
You actually have to actively exert energy, find the remote, and press a button to stop the habit.
The automation is actively working to keep you captive.
So what does this all mean for you as you evaluate your own routines? It means that if you want to win, you have to transition from being a passive victim of your environment to becoming the active architect of it. By automating as much of your daily life as possible with these one-time actions and clever commitment devices, you achieve something almost magical. You free up your mental bandwidth.
And that bandwidth is precious. Willpower and cognitive energy are highly finite resources.
Very finite.
If you exhaust your battery all morning fighting the urge to look at the glowing rectangle in your pocket or, resisting the highly engineered junk food sitting on your kitchen counter, you will have absolutely zero energy left for the complex, creative, high-level tasks that actually move your life and career forward, tasks that algorithms and machines cannot execute for you yet.
You hand the basic, repetitive survival stuff over to the systems and the speed bumps so your brain can actually breathe and focus on what matters.
Beautifully said.
Thanks. So to wrap up our deep dive today, let's crystallize the core concept that Chapter 14 of Atomic Habits wants you to internalize. You absolutely do not need superhuman willpower to fundamentally change the trajectory of your life.
You really don't.
Stop blaming the brakes on your car. You simply need to redesign the road you are driving on. Use commitment devices and one-time actions to make doing the right thing incredibly, frictionlessly easy and doing the wrong thing frustratingly, annoyingly difficult.
This raises an important question, and it's something I want you to heavily mull over today as you move through your normal routine.
What of it?
If human behavior naturally and inevitably follows the path of least resistance, take a hard, critical look around your physical and digital environment right now. What accidental commitment devices have you, or perhaps a corporation, already set up that are currently locking you into the very bad habits you were so desperately trying to break? Are the cookies sitting out in plain sight on the counter? Is the phone charging right next to your pillow on the nightstand?
It all comes back to the design of the road you're driving on. If you constantly find yourself sliding out of control on that icy hill, stop punishing yourself and stop trying to press the brake pedal harder. Get out of the car, grab a shovel, and start building a speed bump. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.